Hey guys, it's Matt. All right, here it is, the full coverage of the incredible John F. Kennedy to Abraham Zapruder Lincoln synchronicities. Now, when I do videos like this that have the potential to get people on the street scratching their heads saying, "How's that possible?" I was like, should I put it out for the regular guy and gal? And every time I say, nah, my responsibility is to our group here not to pull anything back that might sound too crazy. You know, just there. If anybody normal as defined by normal on the street comes across this, just take the synchronicities on their own. Add up the probabilities, get to the about 1 in 500 billion chance it would take, bordering on 1 in trillion, and ignore maybe the stuff in between that sounds a little crazy from people like me and the one flew over the cuckoo's nest side of YouTube. So I'm going to talk to our group. I'm not going to pull any punches or hold back conspiracy. Who's YouTube going to show this to anyway? It's a reality breakdown on steroids. Now, before we get started, if anybody that just loves math, has a really, really kick-ass calculator, understands what those impossible numbers when they come up, like 10 negative e to the whatever, when the number's too big and the calculator can't even calculate it, so an e number comes up, I don't even know what that means. So if you're one of these people that love that and you want to follow the probability and actually want to do this and assign your own probability, just out of the blue, I'm calling the probability of all of this being linked together between Kennedy and Lincoln, it's 1 in hundreds of billions minimum. It's probably bordering on 1 in a trillion if you're not very conservative with your probabilities. But just in general, how probabilities work. Flip a coin 2 times looking for heads 2 times in a row. 50% chance, 50% chance. Then to do it 2 times in a row, 1 in 4, 0.5 times 0.5 is 0.25. Hillary Clinton's 6 coin flips to win Iowa was 0.015 or 1.5% chance. Where Hillary Clinton, in a real news story, this was completely real, she flipped. See, in Iowa, the United States, the shining star of democracy in the world, has to flip coins if things are so close. When things, when they really can't get the hanging chads voted, counted out properly. So in the most important state in the primaries, they flip coins if things are real close. And all the truth community was doing was saying how it's impossible for Hillary to have flipped 6 in a row and gotten 6 in a row. Nobody was even talking about, why are we flipping coins in the modern era of the supposed democracy that's supposed to be the shining star on the hill? Why are we flipping coins? No one was questioning that, except a few idiots in the truth community like myself. So let's get into the Kennedy and Lincoln synchronicities. Number 1 is obvious to most people. Both were assassinated U.S. presidents. Now, before you just blow this off, all right, you have to, if you want to calculate the probabilities properly, you have to look at all the U.S. presidents and the ones that were assassinated. McKinley, and so the chances just from this, I mean, the probabilities go very, very low, even though people are rolling their eyes. Oh, you're going to present this one as number 1? Yeah, this one already starts you off with a low probability, if you understand what I'm saying. If you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. Their last names have 7 letters with vowels in the exact same place. This is Abs Lincoln. By the way, you will need, you don't have to see the pictures. It is much more interesting presentation. I did spend a lot of time selecting the right images and pictures, some funny things, some serious things, but you won't, if you're just listening, you won't need the pictures. But it definitely adds to it in this case. Again, you're rolling your eyes. Oh, 7, is that all you have? The last names have 7 letters, but think of your neighbor's last name versus yours. That's the probability there. You're getting remote already, okay? So don't roll your eyes at the benign here. The idea is to get to a probability that's bordering on 1 in trillions or 1 in a trillion or close to it. And does anybody really believe in a 1 in a trillion? And because that's theoretically impossible, or practically is a better word, per the definition of practicality, impossible. Yeah, it's possible in a MIT math class, but in the real world, if the chances of something are 1 in a trillion, then the only way to interpret that is what you're being told is not what's really happening. Because who would possibly buy a 1 in a trillion chance? It's not going to ever happen. It's like what they used to tell us about, if given enough time, a monkey would eventually, if given enough time, and if a monkey could actually speak English but not understand the letters, just at random, eventually the monkey would recite a full Shakespeare sonnet like Romeo and Juliet. And no, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't, because it can't learn from its past mistakes. It can't learn when it's told 2 households, both alike in banana. It can't be told banana is the wrong word, start over, everything else before it was right. Each attempt stands on its own. So that's what they'll tell you in the egghead MIT statistician classes, but no, it wouldn't eventually happen. Okay? It's practically impossible per the real definition of practicality. This is Lincoln. This is Abe's Lincoln. So next one, the assassins, but there's 49 in total. 49 in total. Not everyone is numbered. Some are numbered just to let you know where we are in this presentation. The assassins were known by 3 names: John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald, John Hinckley Jr. is another one. I've heard of Dylan Storm Roof. And the reality, anybody stumbling upon this will hear me saying, what is he talking about constantly, the reality? I don't have time to explain it here. You know, I'm talking to the people that have been with this channel for a while. The reality in making these types of presentations loves the 3 names. It loves the 3 names. It comes up over and over and over again, and it, not just Dylan Storm Roof. I mean, and Junior, the reason, I mean, John Hinckley Jr., that is like, nobody says John Hinckley without the Junior. Not nobody, but that's how it's commonly presented. The reality, and it loves the 3 names. And this is not the initial pose with your rifle picture trick. I'll show you the initial pose with your rifle picture trick. This is the original. If anybody listening, this is the original Lee Harvey Oswald standing, posing for that picture with his rifle. It's the $12, literally $12 Italian piece of shit bolt action rifle that he apparently got through mail order. That's what supposedly killed JFK, a mail order rifle. You could get, I guess if you live in Texas in the 60s, you could get something like this through the Sears catalog. Literally, you could just get it through mail order. They didn't have no Amazon.com then. This is pose with your rifle trick. There's probably a sketch. See, we think this is the original, but there's probably a sketch somewhere of John Wilkes Booth posing with his rifle. And if you're the reality that wants to play these sorts of tricks and has to repeat the same themes because it has no creativity, then you just have to keep pulling the trick over and over again. This is John Hinckley Jr. posing with his rifle. Anybody surprised? Me neither. This is how the reality does business, with a little lack of creativity and shoving the same scripts down our throat over and over again, decade after decade, century after century. History repeats itself. That really cool song from, I think, Natural Born Killers. All right. The assassins. There's 2 assassins in assassin. They both carry 15 letters in their names. An assassination, 2 asses in a nation. Both John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald, 15 letters in their names. Oh, don't you have anything else? This isn't very exciting, Matt. It gets exciting when you push 1 in a trillion in terms of the probabilities, if you're adding these probabilities up. How many letters in your first name, last name? How many letters in your girlfriend's first name, last name? Is it going to be the same? No. The probabilities are getting very remote already. And I don't know why I put this picture in, but it's just funny as shit. You know, ever wonder what happened to that kid from Deliverance in the beginning? He's a little off. I don't know what was wrong with him with slanty eyes. It's Joe Biden. Joe Biden should have pulled that out. Another debate or something. I don't know what they're debating. It's all fake. It's all a stage show. But he should have pulled a banjo out and asked Trump if he wanted to do dueling banjos. Both paths to the presidency for Lincoln and Kennedy, both paths went through the House of Representatives. And that's very rare, very, very rare. And the image here is a T-shirt where somebody put on the T-shirt, when you think of garbage, think of Akeem. Lisa. I have a date with Lisa McDowell tonight. But when you think of garbage, really think of your elected officials. This would be a more appropriate use of this T-shirt. But, the path to the presidency, if anybody's screaming at me that, what path to the presidency, Matt? The path was fake. Well, you'd be right, of course. How long you been at this channel? Of course, whatever path was laid down in a script was all fake. Nevertheless, it's rare. Nevertheless, to make a good presentation for the people, to be president, you have to be a governor like the genius George W. Bush, or you need to come from the Senate, not the lowly House. Nancy Pelosi's a big figure, but all those minions underneath her in the House, these are just 2 year they're 2 year cycled retreads, and most people don't even know the names. It's very rare to come to the presidency through the House of Representatives in the fake script, which is U.S. politics. Both elected to the House in 46. 1846, 1946, 100 years apart, of course. And what a coincidence for those listening. Here's a picture before the assassination, 2 asses in a nation. Here's a picture of John Hinckley Jr. standing underneath the Ford's Theater, which to me it's Ford Theater. I don't want to turn this into a Mandela Effect video. It shouldn't be. But he's standing under the Ford's Theater sign. Sure. Yeah. If you laid this out like a bad script, it was like your 8th grade assignment in English class, the teacher would reject it. Say this is you're having the person that is in your fiction story planning to assassinate or the assassination attempt, 2 asses in a nation of Ronald Reagan. You're going to put part of your story as he's just standing under the Ford's Theater sign to create some sort of drama. And the 8th grade teacher would reject it. The paper would have a big giant F across it. But this is what the reality presents for real. Each were elected to the presidency in 60, 100 years apart, of course. No one-eye symbolism intended when I drag pictures into this PowerPoint type thing. It crops the picture. I have no say, but isn't that interesting? Of course, the wrong eye's covered. Whatever. Get on with it. Both defeated incumbent vice presidents to win. That would be rare. Both Lincoln and Kennedy defeated incumbent vice presidents to win the presidency. This is a picture of Dan the Quail. Remember, if anybody over 45 will remember Dan Quayle, because he was the VP for George H.W. Bush, I believe. And he debated the other VP nominee, and he says, Mr. Quayle, you're no Jack Kennedy. That was like a big dramatic moment. It was, of course, ridiculous, but whatever. Their VPs were both, here we go. Here's where it starts. If you've stuck with me this far, now it starts getting very interesting. Their VPs were both named Johnson. They love it's got the son, Johnson. And it also, what does a Johnson mean too? Both VPs were, what is this guy, people are like, what is this guy talking about? This is the man's name he was born with. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. There is a gigantic reality script at work here that potentially stems over 1,000 years, but I don't want to get too crazy. I guess I already did. I've lost anybody at this point that's not in our group. Both VPs named Johnson. And this is, if anybody listening, that touching picture of the swear-in aboard Air Force One and Jackie in her bloodless, stainless wool pink topcoat standing right next to LBJ, because it's very important to have the grieving widow stand. You have to the presidential swearing wouldn't even be real or legal if the grieving widow wasn't standing right next to him. Of course, she'd be very interested in doing this just a few hours after her husband's head was blown off. For those that are new to this channel, I have a few issues with that story. We'll touch on that as we go on. I have a few issues with that fairy tale. It should be a Brothers Grimm story. Both VP sons of bitches. Oh, sorry. I got to read this right to get through. Both VP sons of bitches were born 100 years apart. Lyndon the Johnson, 1908. Andrews Johnson, 1808. Now that delivery was poor. I was not prepared for my own slide, but whatever. I ain't re-recording. Now this is a picture of Andrew Johnson, who later, of course, became president. Most people are very unfamiliar with Andrew Johnson, who inherited the presidency after the assassination of Abe Lincoln. But, interesting enough, you know that conspiracy that goes around. This is a picture of Tommy Lee Jones. Andrew Johnson, Tommy Lee Jones. Andrew Johnson, Tommy Lee Jones. No, I'm not going to turn this into one of those presentations where every single movie star has a picture of his clone that existed in a previous lifetime. I'm not going to go and make it that crazy. This is just for fun. Both were ship captains. Most people don't know JFK. He had like a little PT boat. He was a real hero. I think I said, John, would you just get into the boat for a picture? I don't want to get into the boat. We need you in the boat. It's part of the whole evolving story, the John F. Kennedy story. It will take many decades to play out. We need you in the boat. We have to make it seem like you actually put yourself in harm's way during the war. I don't want to get in the boat. Just get in the boat for a picture, John. Then you can get out and we'll get you your ice cream. He said, do I think John really... I think John served time on this boat kind of like the way Prince Harry served time in the Afghanistan in the British Army. I think it was kind of similar. But for those interested, this is JFK's crew aboard the PT boat. It's McHale's Navy, for anybody listening. Number 12, we're up to number 12. I'm using the same picture of a retarded Joe Biden, but it was too damn good. I had to use it twice. Number 12, both presidents suffered from a genetic disease. And what are the chances of this? Remember, the whole point of this is what are the chances as you combine the probabilities. JFK suffered from Addison's disease and Abe Marfan's disease, whatever they are, but both a genetic disease. Right? The chances of that are 1 in hundreds by itself. So if you're playing along at home and you're doing the probabilities, you're already surpassed whatever a normal calculator can do. I don't know how anybody would keep going unless they have access to some university calculator. Don't try to use the university calculator for what we're doing here. You'll lose your job. Never mix what we do here with employment. The matrix agents will sniff that out. Trust, I'm not joking about that. Never, ever send an email or get online to anything we do here from anything related to work. Number 13 and 14 and 15. Number 13, both presidents were shot in the head. 14, both were shot on a Friday. 15, by the way, anybody playing at home, that's a 1 in 7 chance. Number 15, both were seated next to their wives when shot. What are the chances of that? Seated next to their wives when shot. I mean, if I'm playing along at home, the chances of that, presidents and their day-to-day business activities, when they would be assassinated, like Reagan coming out of the tunnel of the Hilton there with Hinckley Jr. just waiting for him out there. The Secret Service just allowed Hinckley Jr. to come up and get within a few feet of him. Chances are the wife wouldn't just be seated next to that. This is 1 in 500 by itself. And this is just a picture for anybody driving or something. I showed a picture of a fat John Travolta turns around and shoots Marvin in the head, which, remember in Pulp Fiction, shoots Marvin in the head. And to me, I've always wagered or factored in that this could be a Quentin creepy Tarantino truth drop. This scene shows you what happens when somebody's head blows off. Remember, Jules is covered in blood and brains, and they got fat John Travolta's got the blood all over him, and I guess Mr. Wolf come and they strip and hoses him off. Remember, and they just got brains, and Jules is like, you should be on brain, dude. You're the one that blew the mother effer's head off, and it shows you what happens when a head explodes. And Jackie has a perfect top coat with no blood on it, which is impossible. What are you saying? Well, I'll get to that later. It's not the point. Anybody struggling with what I'm saying? One president was shot in the Ford Theater. Another while riding in a Ford. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is just... How do the people around us just explain this away? It's just a coincidence. You conspiracy theorists just latch on to it's just a coincidence. I don't care if the total probability approaches 1 in a trillion. Each assassin did it in his place of employment. Samuel Jackson. Can I show this picture? Will you think, will they slap a CR flag on this video just for this one image? When people can show 20 minutes of HD Star Wars? Each did it in his place of employment. So most people don't realize John Wilkes Booth worked as an actor in the Ford Theater. And, of course, Lee Harvey Oswald did it, and he worked in the Texas Book Suppository building. And what a coincidence for both. What a coincidence for both. I mean, we always take the example of Lee Harvey, the only person in the world that we know of that was actively trying and out to, history shows he was actively out to try to assassinate President Kennedy. He had ordered the rifle. It's not like he did it on a whim. He was a Marxist and all that, handing out Cuban leaflets and flyers. And we've talked about this many times, but most people in the street, their jaw drops when they get a full understanding of this. But they'll just go on with their day, then they'll kind of blow off what we're saying, that we just are conspiracy theorists. But you can't get by the most basic element. What are the chances the guy that's trying to kill the president opens the paper up one day and finds out that the president's coming by his place of work in a convertible? Isn't that convenient for him? He didn't just get the job that day. He's like, oh, the person I'm planning to kill is driving by my workplace. Isn't that nice? All I have to do is bring my rifle to work day, go up into of course, the all upstairs is unoccupied. Wasn't that convenient as well? How fortunate for Lee Harvey Oswald. Wasn't that kind of Kennedy to just drive right by his place of work? He didn't have to drive out anywhere and put in miles for reimbursement. But the same thing happened to John Wilkes Booth. Well, these conspirators who were in love with the Confederacy, they wanted Lincoln dead, right? And he's coming to my theater. It's the same phenomenon. He's coming to where I work. If they just couldn't continue that with Hinckley Jr., he should be an aide in the White House or something. Somehow they continue the same tired themes, but if they would have continued that theme, it might have woken up even the zombies around us. Number 18, both died before the trial. Both assassins died before the trial. Very unlikely if things are real. It's not real exciting, this one, but you have to add it into the probabilities. It's unlikely. Unless there was a Sundance, a Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid type shootout, they would, at least chances are overwhelming, one would be taken to trial. Nope. 19, both assassins were Southern white men, the devil of all devils. Both were Southern white men, the devil of all devils. Well, got to add that into probabilities. But see, even the benign ones now, as you add them in, at this level, the calculations, your number is becoming exponentially, grossly large in terms of you're getting into, we're now in 1 in the hundreds of millions chance, approaching 1 in a billion already. And it's just going to continue. So these benign ones, what it's doing is taking the number to ridiculous proportions through multiplying the probabilities through. Number 20, both assassins were in their mid-20s, 5'8", with brown hair and brown eyes. Actually, both assassins being this similar in features, again, by itself is probably 1 in 50. Lincoln was killed in Box 7 of the Ford's Theater. Kennedy was killed in, for anybody driving and listening or playing at home that can't see this presentation, what number do you think I'm going to say? Car 7. Box 7, I'm showing a picture of in the Ford's Museum, you can see the little recreation of the box. Wonder if the blood is still in the seat cushion. They both were treated by a Dr. Charles after the assassination. They both were treated by a Dr. Charles in a building with the initials PH. Really? Parkland Hospital, of course, the most famous one here. And for those that are interested, Lincoln was carried across the street to the Peterson house. And this is Cameron from Ferris Bueller, Mr. Peterson speaking to Mr. Rooney. This is Mr. Peterson. Rooney! Anyway, Lincoln carried to Peterson house. And this is Mr. Peterson speaking to Mr. Rooney in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Number 24, both VPs died. 10 years after the respective assassinations. So the VPs came in, Johnson or whatever, and both of them died. Johnson and Johnson. Is that where Johnson and Johnson came from? I don't know. Johnson and Johnson probably precedes LBJ, but if not, that's probably where it came from. Johnson and Johnson. No more tears. Both VPs died, or Johnson and Johnson, 10 years after the respective assassinations. If they would have made it exactly to the day or something, then that would have even woken up the normies. And this is a picture for anybody driving. This is a picture of Johnson consoling Jackie right after the Air Force One or on Air Force One swear-in, where Jackie has to stand next to LBJ, or the swear-in wouldn't be legal, I guess. And with that ladybird, oh man, that's a serious creature from a plane of hell. I mean, I don't know what that thing is, but she gives you the creeps even more than LBJ. Number 25, the VP names have 13 letters. Pretty boring, but coincidentally, this is the probabilities of this are low, and the number's getting real large at this point. Number 26, Mary Todd Lincoln and Jackie had 4 children. Okay, that by itself, that's a probability. I didn't make it a separate number, but 2 of the children died before becoming an adult. What are the chances? Mary Todd Lincoln and Jackie both had 4 children. What are the chances of that? And I didn't even make that a separate number, but 2 died before becoming an adult. At this point, I slept through my quantitative business analysis class, whatever QBA is. It's like statistics at Penn State, but we have to be already at about 1 in a billion. Number 27. The man seated next to each president had 8 letters in his last name. Connolly, Governor Connolly of Texas, and Rathbone, who was enjoying the play at the Ford's Theater with Lincoln. Number 28. The men seated next to the presidents were injured in the attack. Why are you including that one as separate, Matt? It's not a given that just because you were sitting next to the president during the attack with Lee Harvey Oswald with his sniper rifle is going to injure the person with the bullet next to. Okay, that's a very low probability of that. Okay, so you have to include that. Kennedy had 2 brothers, Robert and Edward. Lincoln had 2 sons, Robert and Edward. Well, that's not the same. There's not the same relationship. It's pretty amazing. They're the same names. You can make this one should be in the list. Of course it should be. Number 30. Both lost children while living in the White House. All right. Remember, the other one was 2 didn't make it to adulthood, but both presidents lost children while living in the White House. What are the chances of that? We didn't lose Chelsea. We didn't lose Chelsea, did we? Should have lost. I don't know. Lincoln's secretary. See, I'm going to say it. Don't even want to say it. Lincoln's secretary was Mr. Kennedy. It was a man. Secretary could be a man. Lincoln's secretary was Mr. Kennedy. Kennedy's secretary was Eve Lincoln. What if it was Abe? Abe Lincoln. It was Eve Lincoln. It's close enough. 3 letters. The reality just loves to do business in this way. We'll talk about all the strange possibilities towards the end. John Wilkes Booth was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald was born. I'll give you 3 guesses, but you're only going to need 1. Did anybody guess 1839? No, it was 100 years after. It was 1939. But what a coincidence, right? Look at that. Look, it's a picture of John Wilkes Booth. Most people don't really know what he looks like. I don't know what kind of roles a man that looks like that could play. Very sorry-looking puppet of the system. Booth ran from a theater and was captured in a warehouse. Oswald fled a warehouse and was captured in a theater. Really? And in the movie theater that stayed open for a number of years, they embroidered on the damn chair, Lee Harvey Oswald, November 22nd, 1963, right on the movie chair, right in the theater. So, right after the movie's not real crowded, it's running, it's dark, and someone's like bitching at the usher, I want to sit in the Lee Harvey Oswald seat. I paid my $1 to be in here. I want to sit in the seat. What's the movie's running, sir? It's dark. It's going to be hard to get your flashlight. I demand to sit in the Lee Harvey Oswald seat. People pushing and shoving. They probably sit in the Lee Harvey Oswald seat. Some guy, well, I'm not going to say that either. I can't explain it. Number 34. Both ins were in police custody at the moment of their death. Both assassins were in police custody at the moment of their death. Okay, think about that. Don't roll your eyes at that like that's no big deal. Okay? Generally, somebody's supposed to go in police custody. There are there's been no Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy shootout. They made it into custody. They're no longer a threat, so now they're safe, right? The police aren't going to just kill them in their cell, right? They're safe. Well, I guess with Booth, that was one thing, but that was 18-something. Now, of course, you know what happened with the fairy tale. Jack Ruby steps up. And for guys, as doing my further investigation of what I put this together for the book, this image is new. Have I spent thousands of hours looking at this? No, but have I spent a lot of time looking at this over 10 years? Yes. Going back to when I believed it could be the Cubans, or it could have been the Russians, or it could have been the military-industrial complex, or it could have been the Fed, or it could have been, all the culprits, all the people that stand behind the police lineup. I looked into them. Oh, it could be that. It could be the mob because RFK was investigating mobsters, and the mob did it. I've never seen this picture. A completely clear picture from high above with Ruby just extending the gun 1/2 second before firing, completely. I don't know if it's a perfect image. It's new to me, and we'll talk about it some other time. This really strange stuff, but this is how the reality does business. Let's just leave it at that. Sure, it could have been to propagate their stories. They can produce any image, fake it, make it look real on a supercomputer. They can do it quicker than you can send your cat pictures down to the CVS and get those printouts to spit out. It's easy for them to do this, but there could be other things at play here, and it's really not the purpose of this video. But to me, I'm not, and I don't want to, it's anybody saying it sounds arrogant. You know every picture that existed, Matt. Of course I don't, and I don't want to make it sound that way. But in researching this, I think I would have seen this. I never have seen this. That's all I'm saying. Let's just not stray too much and stay on the point here. Oh, my friend, Abraham Zapruder. Abraham filmed Kennedy riding in a Lincoln. So this one is Abraham filmed Kennedy, and he was riding in a Lincoln, which ties it back. And this is a picture of my buddy, Abraham Zapruder, who, he tells that story. I went back and my secretary convinced me to go back and get my camera, and I got some good pictures. Anyway, Jefferson Davis led the Confederacy against Lincoln. Good old Jefferson Davis, who allowed Lee to keep lining up army after army, year after year, slaughter after slaughter, without changing their tactics. Any first grader would have changed his tactics. So Jefferson Davis, Confederacy president. Jefferson Davis Tippit was the police officer killed by Oswald after the book suppository incident. Jefferson Davis and Jefferson Davis Tippit. Yeah, sure. We'll blend. This is Mr. Jefferson. This is Jefferson Davis, and this is Mr. Jefferson and Wheezy. John Kennedy was Abe Lincoln's security chief as Lincoln was traveling just before returning to D.C. So Lincoln was traveling right before it happened. The security chief, they didn't have no Secret Service back then, officially no Secret Service. They didn't need no Secret Service. Presidents were just beloved. In the time of the Civil War, when an entire southern nation wanted to kill the president, they didn't have no Secret Service, but they had this guy who was in charge of security, which they should, because the entire South wanted him dead, and his name was John Kennedy. Now, it would have been ridiculous if the reality would have presented John F. Kennedy, but just kept it at John Kennedy so nobody would notice. Kennedy's father was the assassinate. No, Kennedy's father was the ambassador to England in the court of St. James. Lincoln's son was the ambassador to England at the court of St. James. Right. Kennedy's father, Lincoln's son. Same damn court. Kennedy's seat in the Lincoln, where he was shot, is in the Ford Museum. Kennedy's seat in Lincoln, that's in the car is in the Ford Museum. Lincoln's seat where he was shot is also in the Ford Museum, but not Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, the Ford Theater Museum, but both in the Ford Museum. Yeah. Incumbent VPs lose to both. All right, incumbent VPs lose to both. So here it says, only 2 times in history did this happen with presidents. Only 2 times in history. So Nixon, Tricky Dick Nixon, lost to JFK in 1960. He was an incumbent VP. And then this guy named Breckinridge lost to Lincoln in 1860. So only 2 times. Again, if you're an incumbent VP, like the picture here, it's a picture of Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush right before they took a private jet to the Grove. If you're incumbent VP like George H.W. Bush, you're going to win. That's what history says, except these 2 times associated with Kennedy and Lincoln. Number 41. Both men had a premonition and dreams of death. Both outwardly admitted, or it's on record, or it's in books, it's in whatever you would say on record, that both had a premonition and either had a dream or a vision of their death a few hours before or a few days before. Okay? Just the chance of this being on record is, I don't even know what probability you would assign to this. 1 in 100? 1 in 1,000? I don't know. So just for, if anybody's interested, this is Lincoln's personal fairy tale, his premonition. Supposedly, according to Wikipedia and whatever is on record, Lincoln said, I kept on, in this dream, in the dream, I kept on until I arrived at the East Room, which I entered. There I met with a sickening surprise. Before me was a catafalque. Okay, we'll bring, that'll come into play soon, a catafalque. It's like a big wood thing you put a body on, okay? Before me was a catafalque on which rested a corpse wrapped in funeral vestments. Around it were stationed soldiers who were acting as guards. And there was a throng of people gazing mournfully upon the corpse, whose face was covered, others weeping pitifully. Who is dead in the White House? They asked. Or I demanded of one of the soldiers. Who is dead in the White House? President Lincoln demanded of the soldiers in his dream. The president is dead, was his answer. He was killed by an assassin. Really? This is supposed to be Lincoln's dream, completely, perfectly documented. Come on, man, this is absurd. It really is. And he says, before me was a catafalque. So one of the main themes that run through the Kennedy and Lincoln thing, they use this catafalque, this wooden structure that holds a body. And you'll see it was recycled up again for the JFK assassination, the Lincoln catafalque. This is getting... let's just continue. Let's get this over with. This is absurd. So, for those that can't read this, the article... title of the article is JFK made the premonition about his reputation privately to his wife Jackie. JFK made the prediction about his reputation. Guys, I didn't read the headline before, but I assure you this article was about JFK's premonition of before his death, just hours before it happened. This is well documented. Maybe I pulled in the wrong article, but nevertheless, in the case of Lincoln, it was a dream days before, and I believe in the case of Kennedy, had a premonition about his own death just hours before to Jackie. All right. Now, this is an old picture of Lincoln's body in the East Room of the White House, and what is famously known as the Lincoln catafalque, CATAFLAQUE. Right, just a big wooden constructed structure, put a body on. I have no idea the etymology of the word, but this word got, if it is famous at all, it got famous with the Lincoln body in state in the East Room of the White House after the Ford's Theater assassination. Okay, next picture is of Jackie standing in front of JFK, placed on not any old catafalque, the actual Lincoln catafalque in the East Room of the White House. So if you're playing at home and doing what are the chances and you're adding your probabilities together, on which you will need now a supercomputer to get the actual probabilities. You have Lincoln placed on a cataflock, but then the Lincoln cataflock was saved. The actual one was saved. They got it from, where was it? Was it in the basement of the White House? Now, the picture you're looking at is roughly 6 a.m. the next day after JFK or the Debbie Does Dallas incident. 6 a.m. you're looking at. Because there's a video of a procession coming at it's dark. It's 5 a.m. It's dark. Jackie's marching. There's an honor guard. The procession of the body to the East Room. So somehow this cataflock that held Lincoln's body was somewhere. So they produced it. They produced it in less than 24 hours for what? And why did you have to? Now this is on record, guys. I'm not. But if you're just going to put the body in the East Room, why does it have to be on the Lincoln cataflock? Did they have it just stored in the... Well, we'd like to put the body on the Lincoln cataflock. Well, where... Does anybody know where the Lincoln cataflock is? It's been 100 years. Yeah, I think it's in the basement. It's in the basement of the White House. It's down there with a bunch of toys that Garfield used to play with and all this stuff. We keep it in the basement of the White House. If it's not in the basement of the White House, it's in that big warehouse that was shown at the end of Indiana Jones that had the Ark of the Covenant. It's probably just a few aisles up from that. So they produced the same exact cataflock, if I'm even pronouncing that right. And then the next image, did anybody catch where or you might not know where I was going to go, but did anybody catch this next thing, which is just reality breakdown times a million past anything we even talked about here? Jackie's in the same outfit. Jackie's in the same outfit. Now, I'm going to do a few minutes here, guys, because this is the most incredible, ridiculous. I don't know what words to use. I don't know what words should be coming out of my mouth talking about this. You've got Jackie. I could do hours on this, but I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it under 4 minutes. I'm going to start 4 minutes or less. Jackie has the famous pink wool. Does wool absorb liquids? Yeah. They didn't have this scientific Scotchgard shit back then. I assure you, real wool, or it was from Chanel or one of these designers, it absorbs better than a freaking Bounty Quicker Picker-Upper in terms of blood or whatever it's going to absorb. A wool coat and dress, skirt, and top coat. So as Pulp Fiction showed us what happened when somebody's head gets blown off, Jackie, the head gets blown off, and she's even shown apparently running around the hood or the trunk trying to pick up brain and all this, but she has essentially no blood on the top coat. If you look at it extremely closely, there's two tiny little spots, which I would say came from ketchup that fell off a hot dog earlier that day. Two tiny little spots on the left arm. For the most part, she has no blood on the top coat, which is impossible. Let me repeat that. If it's what happened, what they say, or what's a Brutus showed us, it's pictures, it's impossible. Remember, go watch the Marvin scene in Pulp Fiction. She'd be covered in it. She'd be calling Mr. Wolf in, or at least somebody would have a backup outfit. Now, we know she didn't put up people screaming. Obviously, Matt, the First Lady doesn't go to luncheons in Texas or Dallas without having a backup outfit or two. Are you kidding me? No, she didn't, because she kept the blood all over her legs and skirt. And I want them to see what they did to my husband. Well, we need to see what they did to your husband by blood on your legs and your skirt. How about the Zabruta pictures and everybody that just saw his head blow off? I mean, it's like somebody getting the. I'm not even going to go there either. That's really inappropriate. But I want them to see what they did to my husband. That's why she wouldn't wash her legs. That's why she wouldn't change skirts. And then somebody yelled, is there somebody on the other side? Well, Matt, she didn't have a backup set of clothing. Well, then even if she didn't, one of her aides wouldn't have gone shopping for her to get some clothing that wasn't soaked in blood, and or some woman at the Parkland Hospital wouldn't have just said, "Jackie, take my clothes. I'll call my husband. I live a mile from here. He'll bring me something." She obviously, but so the history of it is, I'm not changing these garments because I want them to see what they did to my husband. Well, that means she didn't change any of it. The top coat is completely fine. All right. Then she's shown the plane sits at Love Field forever because Johnson has to have a federal judge come onto the plane to swear him in, all part of the act, the script. So it's hours and hours after. By the time they get back to Andrews Air Force Base, it shows Jackie coming out with the body, with RFK. They get in the same hearse as the body. She's still covered in blood. Now this is same outfit, okay, same pink outfit. This is now, it would be roughly 7 hours, 6 or 7 hours after the event. It probably a little bit more. Apparently, Kenny was only in Parkland Hospital. Look, you know where I'm going with this, guys. Nobody was in Parkland Hospital. Yoda was in Parkland Hospital. I don't buy this bull crap, but I'm just going to go. Kennedy was in Parkland Hospital for only like an hour. And then the big bone of contention was, oh, yeah, the feds just took the body away before it could be analyzed. And, oh, that's more conspiracy. So then there's a video of this procession, and I noticed this years ago. Jackie's marching with the procession. The car with the hearse is moving up towards the East Room of the White House, the honor guard, and Jackie's marching in it. Okay, and I'm like, it looks like it's hard to tell in black and white. Like, it looks like she's wearing the same thing. What? Then there are these very high quality color pictures of they come inside and the body actually being placed on the Lincoln catafalque, and Jackie is 100% in the same exact outfit. Now, for some reason here, there still actually is a little bit of, you can see a smudge on her leg. That's blood, supposedly. Not really. It's more likely Yoda's blood. You know where I'm going, but I have to, when I talk about reality breakdowns that are associated with the official narrative, I have to stay within the official narrative. So I see a smudge on her right leg to your left under the knee. Is that why that exact same portion of the leg became silver for C-3PO? And then I see the skirt looks like either she ate some sloppy falafel or the skirt still has the blood stains. So you telling me, so back 7 hours later, then they go into the night and Jackie's wearing the same thing. And nobody around her, RFK or her friends or loved ones are saying, Jackie, it's time to change out. But I want them to see what they did to my husband. Well, Jackie, I agree, but you've showed the world that. Now you're here at home. We're about to have dinner. You showed the world what they did to your husband. Time to change. You've got a few outfits, a few thousand upstairs. A few were set this morning in a case here from Giorgio Armani for free. Do you want to change? No. I'm gonna stay in this bloody shit, and then I'm gonna march through the streets tomorrow with the same outfit because I want them to see what they did to my husband. Are you kidding me? At least they look like they cleaned up her legs a little bit. But I mean, if anything was real and she was completely, Matt, don't you understand how distraught Matt, have your husband from the Castro district's head blow off right next to you, and you see how you react to it. See if you're not completely whacked out of your mind. Let's just say all that's true. Somebody, you can see a smudge still in her leg. Somebody would have said, Jackie, if you're not taking that thing off, that skirt, I can't. 4 minutes has passed. I know. I'm done. 30 seconds. You're not taking that skirt off. I can't force you, but we are washing the blood off your legs here with this sponge. I'm not going to throw you under the shower, put the water on, but we're going to wash the blood off your legs. This is it would have happened. Okay, it's an absolute joke, and I don't know. The moment I say I'm not going to spend any more time on it, I'll come back and do another one of these. But it's just fascinating. It really is. Number 43, JFK's funeral was meant to mimic, as I've already alluded to, was meant to mimic Lincoln's, per the admission of Jackie, who copied Lincoln's funeral. Much of the elements of Lincoln's funeral were copied by Jackie for JFK. Now, here's an image I found that just blew me away. I found it just today. Close-up image of a Lincoln statue that looks like it's pointing. It looks like it's looking down. They took a picture, and this is not the picture. I kind of zoomed in on this part. The picture is bigger. But if you zoom in on it, there's the Lincoln statue looking down and pointing at the JFK casket. I don't know what to say. You can't make this shit up, but apparently you can because it's all made up. I don't know. Let's just move on. JFK's political rival was Adlai Stevenson. I've heard that name before. Adlai Stevenson II was JFK's rival. Adlai Stevenson I, his grandfather, Adlai name missed that middle generation, unfortunately. That was the political rival of Lincoln. So they had the same political rival. Yeah. Both had, by the way, guys, again, when you pull these images in, it just crops it, and I didn't have time to make every image perfect. Both had co-conspirator help. Now, Oswald name was Ruth Paine, and Booth Lewis Paine. Oswald Ruth Paine, Booth Lewis Paine. Now, Ruth Paine, more of a innocent conspirator, not convicted. She answered thousands of questions from the Warren Commission. This is a picture of Ruth Paine, and I guess it says assassination. It was cut off. And again, you have, the eye covering. I mean, it's not the right eye covering, but it's nothing. It's just the cropping. She was asked thousands of questions by the Warren Commission, and the only thing that at all tied her to Oswald was he hid the rifle in her garage or something, or he stored the rifle in her garage. And she's like, "Well, yeah, the rifle's in the garage. How am I supposed to know what he was supposed to do with it?" That's just part of the fairy tale fiction. She's pulled in for thousands of questions, and Booth, this Lewis Paine, was probably more of a real conspirator related to bitterness from the Civil War and the Confederacy, et cetera, et cetera. But guys, you know where I'm going to go with this. I mean, if you have this impossible coincidences, if you get to the conclusion that the JFK event, Debbie Does Dallas, was complete ridiculous BS and nothing happened, then why would I think something really happened to Abe? I don't. Once you understand how the reality does business, then I apply what I know about how the reality does business to these events. Nothing happened in either event, in my opinion. And to me, it's obvious, but obviously I could never prove that. The funeral procession for JFK went past the Lincoln Memorial. Went right past the Lincoln Memorial. The statue probably moved and flipped up the bird. Went right by the Lincoln Memorial. Anybody surprised? Me neither. All by design in the grand script of inhuman puppeteers. Number 47. Lincoln's son Robert. Is that who's the guy that played in who has the electric car that played in The Aviator and Romeo and Juliet? That's Leonardo DiCaprio. Number 47. I'm not going there, guys. Oh, this is a club. They reincarnate these sequential incarnated minions that are bound to this plane of existence. Maybe, but the stuff that shows up, like a picture of Keanu Reeves that shows up that looks like in the Civil War, that just looks like Keanu Reeves. Come on, guys. Talk about being played and used. Of course that was put out there just so the conspiracy people would run with that. Nobody found pictures that really look like. I mean, you could do anything with pictures. Look at the Zapruder film was faked. You could do anything with pictures. Conspiracy group and truthers running around saying, look, there's all these people that look just like the stars. Some puppeteer, as a joke, created those pictures on a supercomputer, put it out, and laughing as the truthers run with that. But this looks like a little bit like Leonardo DiCaprio. Lincoln's son Robert graduated from Harvard, became a lawyer, and served in the cabinet for 2 presidents. JFK's brother Robert, well, you can guess the rest. Exactly the same. On July 16th, 1963, this nice and beautiful man, Abraham Lincoln Morowitz, was nominated by JFK to sit on the U.S. District Court of Illinois. I made a little mistake with the spelling of Illinois. It says Illinois. So let me get this straight. JFK nominated Abraham Lincoln to sit on the U.S. District Court in Illinois. And Illinois, that's the land of Lincoln. Right? It wasn't Arizona, it was Lincoln. Number 49. Only 2 presidents have performing arts centers in their name. Guess which 2? All the gin joints in all the world, 2 presidents have centers for the performing arts associated with them. There's the Lincoln Center and the Kennedy Center. Bill Clinton has a string of Arkansas sex shops named after him. Most people don't know about. So what do we have? We still have, there's a picture of the Lincoln Center here. It's in New York. And a picture of the Kennedy Center here. So this is where Bill Cosby was honored. Bill Cosby and all the other frauds are honored in these Kennedy Center honors. Nothing is more fraudulent than the Kennedy Center honors. I mean, what a joke. But it says, if you look up Bill Cosby, he was honored, and almost all the articles use the term stripped. They use the term, I'll get to that in a minute. We've come this far. I don't want to lose anybody before the very end. I'll get to that in a minute. But guys, well, unless you're absolutely neck deep in conspiracy as we are, you're not going to buy what I'm going to say now. But it goes with obviously a conclusion about all this I've already mentioned or alluded to. I came to the conclusion. Oh boy. Well, let's say 3 or 4 years ago, that the Debbie Does Dallas incident was a joke. It just nothing happened. Nobody was shot. Just complete stage show. And I'll talk about that some other time. Why I believe, and I put the probability extremely, extremely high. I'm not ignorant enough to say I know 100% when I wasn't there, but it's very, very high. Nothing happened. And as you study the way these creeps do business, I mean, it's just logical. I know I'm not really putting this properly, but you would say, well, why would I believe? I know how they do business. I've studied the bang events in other areas. Why would I believe the Lincoln story? Why? I mean, if you see the nature of how something does business, then you can do all the research you want. What is it going to tell you? It's going to tell you the official story of John Wilkes Booth. Why should I believe it? I don't. Once I see its nature, then I'm going to apply its nature to many other things. But then when you see things like this, guys, it just helps support the conclusion. So do you know where I'm going here? Centers for the Performing Arts, acting. Centers for joke telling, Bill Cosby, acting. Lincoln and Kennedy, the two that have the names associated with Performing Arts Center, which means the event itself was performing arts, fake. Yeah. Does that mean McKinley's assassination was completely real? No. It probably was fake too, but maybe they didn't want to build another building. I don't know. But nobody cares about that president compared to these two biggies. These are the biggies. So, Centers for the Performing Arts. Yeah, that means acting. That means fake. So you can apply it to other events. Here's we could do hours just on the absurd Reagan incident with James Brady, and this was an image where someone shows the spraying of the 22 caliber handgun. The 6 shots were fired in 1.7 seconds outside of the special president's tunnel of I think the Hilton put it in D.C. 6 shots in 1.7 seconds with a revolver is impossible. Now, the last time I said that, I actually had people that went out on the internet and they found like these Annie Oakley shows, or a guy like who's the all-time fastest shot who got off 6 shots or 9 shots in 1.2 seconds or something. People actually showing me this, that it's possible. Are you kidding me? You're going to apply that standard? The fastest shot in the world, who's in the freaking Annie Oakley show. Tom Cruise was in that show about the Old West before going to Japan in The Last Samurai. You're gonna compare that to this James Brady who was freaked out of his mind, who he's like he just in love with Jodie Foster. He's like probably pours syrup all over his chest and dips his pancakes into his chest to have breakfast. And this supposedly freaked out dude, John Hinckley Jr., he's just going to be an expert marksman, trained, and he's going to get off 6 shots in 1.7 seconds. I'm saying it's not possible for anybody if you're not in the Annie Oakley show. And per the poundage of the guys in the Annie Oakley show have hair triggers. Per the poundage set on the 22, it could be a 5-pound trigger. It's not possible for anybody to pull it to have the finger strength to pull it 6 times in 1.7 seconds. Gorillas have more finger strength than most men do in their biceps. A gorilla couldn't pull it six times in 1.7 seconds. It's impossible. Please don't send me pictures from the Annie Oakley show again. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. So this isn't the only event. Now we're told that thing that makes this whole Hinckley thing a joke. We're told that Reagan wasn't. Did you know history says Reagan wasn't shot? Right? No, he wasn't shot directly by. Let's put it that way. He wasn't shot directly by Hinckley Jr. That's like a Mandela effect for some people, and people are like, what? No, it ricocheted off the car door into Reagan's chest. He was not shot directly by Hinckley Jr. So, like, where was that for the last 35 years? I've known about that for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, but where was that? During the event was so big for anybody my age, around 50. I mean, we ran home after school, and one kid had a VCR, and he started, nobody had a VCR. He started recording it. Oh, we're going to record this for history, and we watched it over and over, and it was a big event for 2 weeks. It was the biggest news story in the world. Almost bigger than C-19 is now. But presidential assassination was smaller than C is now in your local news. But nobody talked about a ricochet. I don't know where this came from, but whatever. There's just a lot of things here that don't add up. And of course, per the way the reality does business, I don't buy it. I don't buy this one bit. I don't care about James Brady wheeling himself around like Gabby. I don't give a crap. Centers for the Performing Arts is what it is. And soon, there'll probably be a Reagan Center for the Performing Arts on 42nd Street in New York City. Thanks, guys.